The shadows of power rarely announce themselves. They whisper through history, through forbidden texts, through the cracks in the moral foundations of those who dared to name them. 7 names, 7 figures, each a mirror of humanity's darkest inclinations, each a reflection of sins we pretend do not define us. The story you think you know is incomplete, sanitized, a map drawn by fearful men who feared the truth as much as the demons themselves. Who are the 7 princes of hell? And why does the cataloging of sin itself carry a price few dare calculate? It begins in the murky intersections of medieval theology and esoteric lore. The earliest frameworks appear not in popular culture, but in grimoires, in the whispered notes of exorcists, in the painstaking taxonomies of sin devised to impose order on chaos. Dante, centuries later, would give them names and faces, framing infernal hierarchy as almost bureaucratic. But the origins are more insidious. Pride, lust, envy, wrath, gluttony, greed, sloth. These are not merely moral failings. They are, according to the hidden texts, the domains of powerful entities, the princes whose influence shapes human history in ways unrecorded by official chronicles. Lucifer, the first among them, is often misrepresented as a singular force of rebellion, a tragic fallen angel of light. But closer reading reveals a subtle orchestration, a figure who thrives not merely on defiance, but on the meticulous erosion of faith, the corrosion of trust, the quiet poisoning of morality. In the narratives of 12th and 13th century demonologists, Lucifer is the embodiment of pride, but not the naive kind. This is the calculated, strategic pride that destabilizes kingdoms and erodes alliances, that whispers to rulers in dreams, suggesting compromise and sowing internal collapse. Next is Mammon, the prince of greed, whose influence stretches far beyond the coin purses of medieval merchants. Historical records hint at his touch in the corridors of power, in the acquisition of lands, in wars waged for profit disguised as honor. Greed is never abstract. It is mechanized, a lever of corruption that bends the world to desire, turning citizens into pawns, families into commodities. Chronicles from Florence to Venice, often praising commerce and civic growth, quietly mask the price paid in subjugation and moral compromise. Leviathan claims the domain of envy, and yet envy is no mere petty emotion. It is a corrosive lens through which societies compare themselves, through which ambition is twisted into resentment and alliances fracture under the weight of jealousy. Some scholars argue Leviathan is more than a demon. It is a psychological contagion, a feedback loop amplified by human institutions, by law, by hierarchy, by the relentless tally of who has and who does not. Look closer, and you see envy written not just in hell, but in human empires. Asmodeus, the prince of lust, is remembered in stories as grotesque, often sexualized in caricature. But beneath the surface lies a sharper, more insidious strategy: desire as a weapon, temptation as infrastructure. Religious treatises of the 16th century warn not only of physical indulgence, but of obsession, of the manner in which lust erodes civic cohesion, how it manipulates courts, influences marriages, and shapes dynastic lines. Asmodeus is not a figure of mere moral panic. He is a mirror of society's failures to contain its own appetites. Leviathan, Asmodeus. These names already suggest a kind of narrative symmetry, but consider Beelzebub, often associated with gluttony or with corruption more broadly. The historical figure behind the name is fascinating. In some early accounts, he is invoked not to terrify, but to manage and explain the overwhelming failures of human institutions. Gluttony in this framing is societal, structural, a reflection of human excess that breeds famine and disease alike. The prince becomes an anthropomorphized ledger of consequences, a moral auditor the living cannot escape. Satan, or in some accounts, Belphegor, presides over sloth, yet sloth is rarely simple. Beyond idleness lies a paralysis that spreads across communities, a lethargy that allows atrocities to occur without resistance, that permits corruption to flourish unchallenged. In the archives of inquisitions, one can trace moments where inaction, the refusal to confront wrong, perpetuated cycles of cruelty, famine, and power abuse. The demon is the personification of every hesitation, every tolerated injustice, every silent witness complicit in history. Finally, there is Leviathan, or sometimes, in alternate grimoires, the Prince of Wrath. Here, the lines between myth and recorded history blur. Wars, massacres, pogroms, vendettas. The historical record is full of wrath in motion. And yet, demonologists insist this is not mere human rage. Wrath, when summoned by a prince, becomes precise, almost surgical. It strikes, it punishes, it destabilizes. Wrath is strategic. Wrath is contagious. And while human history is filled with its eruptions, the texts suggest a guiding hand, an archetypal intelligence steering fury toward maximum fracture. Yet the stories most often told omit the most unsettling insight. The princes of hell are mirrors, not monsters. They exist because humans embody them. They are invoked in texts, feared in ritual, painted in grotesque forms, but they are reflections of our own capacities for ruin. Temptation is not external. It is cultivated, it is internalized. History, when examined closely, reads less like a chronicle of heroes and villains and more like a ledger of human compromise, each page marked by the subtle hand of those demons we refuse to acknowledge within ourselves.